Yo guys, sorry you already know that today we are going to be ranking the bosses from Kenna Bridge of Spirits. I recently finished playing the game, and as it's starting to become tradition around these parts, I need to do a ranking about them, and I figure the best thing to rank from this game are the boss fights, because I think the boss fights are definitely the main draw to this game. I had a lot of fun with it. So this list is going to very simply be me ranking from worst to best in terms of what I found the least fun to what I find the most fun. That is all this is going to be based on. This is based on my one-time playthrough on normal difficulty, and it's just a mixture of how much fun did I have fighting this boss, how much would I be looking forward to going against this boss again in the future, and it's literally that simple. For this list, there are 16 bosses. I'm counting any enemy that shows up with a name and a giant health bar. That's what I consider bosses, and I'm only going to be talking about the fight in which they show up as a boss. There are some of the early bosses that get reused later in the game as normal enemies. Those are not going to be considered for anything about the bosses. It's only going to be the fight that they show up in. That way it only takes into account the abilities and whatnot you have available to use at any given time. So it should be pretty self-explanatory. This one should be pretty quick. Let's go ahead and just hop right into it. Starting out at number 16, the worst boss in the game should surprise nobody that watched my playthrough. It's the Hunter. I absolutely did not have any fun fighting the Hunter, which is kind of unfortunate because the concept behind it is pretty cool. You hide behind trees, you pop out, you shoot the Hunter as it's flying around, zooming around, you knock it to the ground just to go up and get some hits on it. But the problem that I found in the fight is anytime that you're able to kind of knock it out of the air and go up and get hits on it, you really could only get one or two hits off and then it's just up flying around again. I'm not really great at aiming the bow, so I was having a hard time hitting it. And I basically just noticed that I was getting hits there, and like 10 minutes into the fight, I'm like a fourth of the way through its health bar, and I was just not having fun. It felt like it dragged on. I did not enjoy it at all, to the point that I lowered the difficulty just so I could get through it. Not because it was too hard, but because I was just not having fun. So by far and away, that is the worst boss fight in my opinion. Coming in at number 15 is going to be the final fight of the game, the Corrupt Rock God. The actual monster, like itself, the giant beast, is a lot of fun to fight. But I have a couple of big issues with this fight. The main ones being just the gauntlet of enemies that are just kind of there and don't really make sense to be there. There's just too many of them, like back to back. And I get it that you're kind of going through these enemies to regain your rots and things like that, but I just don't like how many enemies there are, and the fact that you have to start over at the beginning anytime that you mess up. The two big issues that I have with this fight, more specifically, are you get your rot, right? You have a full rot level, you go through the gate, and then you lose it, and you have to earn it again, which just doesn't really make sense. And also, even if you go from the second phase of the fight to the third phase, if you end the second phase and you have a rot level, when you show up to the third phase, you lose it again. And it's the only time in the game that this happens where you lose a rot level mid-fight, and it just doesn't really make any sense. The other big issue that I have is the final phase of the fight where it has the yellow rods. You have to know to attack that, and the visual indicator is just not very clear about that. I was looking at the bulb trying to attack that. I was just going around, and there's so many enemies, so many things happening, and there's no clear visual indicator as to like what you're supposed to do. And yeah, again, if you fail at any part of this, you just have to do the whole thing over, and it is just really, really tedious. And I think there are sections of this fight that could have been really good, but compiled all together, it was not a great experience. So unfortunately, that is going to have to be there at number 15. From here, we're going to make a considerable jump in quality, as number 14 is going to be the Vine Knight. The Vine Knight is very close to being good, and there's a lot of sections about this fight that are good. The two things I don't like are the kind of gauntlet of enemies before the fight. In most boss fights, you show up and you fight the boss, and there might be little enemies around. But the Vine Knight, you have to get through a slew of normal enemies before you can even start fighting it. And then also its vine, like, grab attack thing is just, like, almost impossible to dodge. It goes through the structures, and I don't know. It didn't feel super fair, I guess. But it's also not like a super hard fight. It just seems to be weighed down with kind of tedious extra enemies and that attack that you just have to maneuver around. Without those things, it would definitely be considerably higher, as there are other fights that are very similar to this one that don't have that. And yeah, but I just can't get over how annoying that was. So yeah, it ends here at number 14. At number 13 is going to be the Rot Eater. I find this to be a very forgettable fight, despite the fact that I played this game very recently. I still kind of forget that this fight happened. And when I was looking back at my experience fighting it, I kind of realized that I feel like the flying enemies are more a bigger threat than the actual boss. The boss is kind of in the background, sometimes lobbing explosives at you, but it's not really a threat, and it's just kind of forgettable. I can't even remember when exactly in the game it shows up, but I feel like everything that happens around it is just way better than the Rot Eater itself. So for being the most forgettable fight in the game, it's just gonna kind of end up here. It's not bad, but it's not hard, and the boss isn't even the biggest threat in the fight, so Number 12 is going to start getting into a section of fights that I just like to label as being way too easy. Number 12 is Sprout. It's the very first boss of the game. It's literally just an introduction as to like how fighting a boss works, how the combat works. I'm pretty sure this is the fight that introduces the parrying mechanic. I'm pretty sure I died once just because I was trying to get the parrying down, but if you're actually trying to win, there's almost no way you lose this fight. It's very easy. There is a reason that this ends up getting reused as a normal enemy plenty of times later down the line. But it is a pretty good introduction to the game, and there's nothing inherently bad, so it's going above all the other ones. But it can't go that much higher. It's a very easy, basically tutorial boss, so yeah. Number 11, just missing out on the top 10, is going to be the Mage. I feel like this one might be kind of divisive because it sounds like people don't really like fighting the mages, and I don't really see a problem with them. This one is specifically about the mage boss fight right outside the Lantern Cave. And this fight I accidentally stumbled into because I didn't realize there would be a fight there. I accidentally used a healing flower, not realizing that that's what it was. And then I proceeded to win first try. I feel like the balls that it throws at you are pretty easy to parry. It doesn't have a lot of health. It's pretty easy to just beat. And I don't know. Like, it wasn't the easiest thing, but I did get through it pretty quickly. And I don't think the mage in the boss fight ever healed itself. I'm not sure if it can. I know some of the mages later on can, but that didn't happen to me. And yeah, so for not needing a healing flower and beating it first try, it is definitely on the easier side. And it's fine, but I feel like the mage fights later in the game are harder, which kind of devalue this one a little bit. I don't know. It's not super great, so it's just going to miss out on the top 10 here. Just sneaking into number 10 actually surprised me a little bit. It's going to be the Warrior. The Warrior I also beat first try, and it was very easy considering it's basically the last fight in the game that I did before the final bosses. But it was cool. It has some like cool attacks. It's very slow and big, but it's very easy to hit, kind of easy to dodge its attacks, and it's nice, but it's just fine. Like, it doesn't have anything great about it. It doesn't have anything bad about it. It was pretty easy, and it was good. It was a good sigh of relief because I took on the Warrior right after the Hunter, so it was definitely a good change of pace for me. So I'm actually kind of surprised that it made it this high, but I guess looking at these bosses so far, there are a few lower tier / easy / forgettable bosses, but we're getting pretty close to the really good ones. I think kind of bosses either really go to really bad to really mediocre to really good, and there's not much of a varying scale in between. It kind of just fits into one of those three tiers. So Warrior is still in the mediocre tier for me. Number 9 for me is going to be the Kappa. I actually really enjoyed this fight. It was the first boss fight that sort of had more of a gimmick to it. It throws out the little enemies at you. You have to attack the enemies to build up rod actions, then use the rod actions to hold the Kappa in place, and then just beat up the Kappa. I thought it was really neat. Not super hard, but it was just it was a neat concept that I was, excited. I felt a sense of accomplishment, like figuring it out and just like executing on it. It was good. There's really not much to say. I think the little boss arena is like pretty good. The concept of how it attacks you is just good. And it's just a really good early boss fight, and I think the actual boss fight is better than the kappa fights that show up later. The one that shows up in the one Adira path, I forget what that area is called. That one was fine, but I know there was a kappa fight that I took on in one of the spirit mail houses. That one was awful. But we're not counting that one. We're only counting the original, and the original was very good. So we're starting to get into very good territory with Kena bosses here. Number 8, and I'm very surprised it actually made it up this high, is Corrupt Taro. It has a really bad, sort of grab attack, similar to how the Vine Knight. So despite the fact that I really don't like the Vine Knight, Corrupt Taro really had something different to it because it was so aggressive. And being someone who's a super big fan of Bloodborne and just kind of fast paced action gameplay, this really felt at home to me. But the thing that makes that attack a little bit better is the at least later when it has the lantern hanging from its neck, so you have a chance to shoot that and do big damage. It was really satisfying to be able to start the fight with a rod action and getting off a combo to just lower its health bar. This one I felt really, it just felt really satisfying to figure out the combos and the wind up twist attacks. I just really enjoyed fighting it, and it felt really satisfying to finally win. It was really good. The only other minor things that did happen were, I think there was 1 or 2 times I went to go get a healing flower and it attacked me while I was looking away. I guess that's the risk you take, but in other boss fights you just have freer access to healing flowers without getting hit, and I did not feel like I had that in this one. But the boss arena was pretty cool. I really liked, sort of where it takes place in the story, and it was just really satisfying to beat. So if I had to fight this boss, I would take fighting this again over all the ones that came before it. So yeah. Coming in at number 7 is going to be the Wood Knight. Wood Knight I was kind of surprised by, because it is sort of the first bigger boss, whereas the Sprout is sort of your introduction. I feel like the Wood Knight is your introduction to the more aggressive bosses that come and attack you. And I'm pretty sure I beat this one first try. It wasn't actually that hard, but it felt really intense. It, will throw its boomerang at you. It has, I think in the first fight, I forget if it has the crystals for you to attack it or not. I feel like it doesn't, but if it does, then it's better. I should look back on that, but it was just really cool for being sort of an introduction to, these are the more aggressive boss fights. Which I thought was really, really nice, and it was just fun. It happened pretty early in the game, and I think it was a really good introduction to the more aggressive fights. So it's pretty simple. There it is. Number 6, fulfilling a similar role, is going to be the Sprout Captain. This happens just a little bit later, as you're going to collect the relics for Taro. It is another one that's pretty aggressive. Not super hard. I did struggle a little bit with this one, but that felt like it was more me messing up than the boss doing anything super crazy. But it was aggressive. I love the sort of entrance. You step on the central platform thing, and you use your pulse, and then the door just opens, and out pops the Sprout Captain. It just kind of sprung up out of nowhere, but it was pretty fun. It was really satisfying to beat. And there's really not much more I can ask for. This is just a further exploration of these aggressive 1v1 boss fight that I thought was done really, really well. Cracking the top 5, we're going to start out with the Mask Maker. The Mask Maker just looks cool. It has this white, glowing giant samurai sword thing. It's pretty aggressive, and it feels a lot harder than it is, because he'll kind of teleport towards you, he'll teleport away, he'll do the big AoE attack, he'll send little minions after you. There's a lot of things going on, but it's really not that hard if you just kind of attack him. I think he doesn't have a super huge amount of health. But I just thought it was really cool. I just like the boss arena. I like the sword and the sword attacks that he did. It was really, really neat. So Mask Maker definitely had to make the top 5. It was a big highlight between the Mask Maker, Warrior, and Hunter trio. The Mask Maker easily outshined both of them. And yeah, that was a really, really fun fight. We are in very, very high tier territory now. Number 4 is the Stone Guardian. The Stone Guardian, this is actually a little bit higher than I would have expected it to be, but it was really cool. This is one of the fights, maybe the first boss fight after getting your bomb ability, and so clearly they had to make a boss around you using the bombs to make the crystals come out and shoot the crystals and whatnot, as well as just make invulnerable to more attacks. He had a similar pattern to an earlier boss fight that has not yet been mentioned, that we'll get to very soon. And you had to sort of juggle the small enemies around and just do your best to win. And it wasn't super hard, especially just because once I figured out what to do, it was just pretty satisfying and I enjoyed it. It was really just fun, and I would take doing that fight again over all the other ones that I mentioned so far, so that's how it ends up this high. And that is going to immediately transition us into number 3, the Shrine Guardian. I had so much fun with this one. This one was very difficult for me. I don't know why. I kept getting tripped up by the smaller enemies that would just do little chip damage here and there. I thought the boss arena was so cool looking. The Shrine Guardian would jump from side to side. It would get really aggressive, but then also give you space to heal, build up rod actions, things like that, until you could go and attack its bulb and just do a big chunk of damage. It was so satisfying to beat. It was so much fun. When I fought this boss, I was like, this is the best one that I fought so far. And it really was, until a couple better ones came later on. But this is definitely just a standout boss to me, and I think it's so, so good. And it was just a lot of fun to manage all the little things together, and it was great. It was great. Coming in at number 2 is what I thought was going to be the final boss of the game. It is Corrupt Toshi. This one really puts your skills to the test, as he is really aggressive. He has a lot of crazy attacks. The boss arena is very cool. His combos are kind of insane, but you get to really make use of your dash ability in combat. It really helps in this fight, which definitely did make the fight easier once I figured that out. Without that, it was really, really a struggle. But he throws a lot of variety attacks. He's got the balls coming at you, or the beams or whatever, when he shoots from far away. He'll go in the middle and throw things on the ground, so you have to jump the shockwaves or whatever. There's just a lot of variety of attacks, and then he's just got the different sword slashes, and you just have to really be able to either get some parries off, get some really nice dodges off. He's really aggressive, he's really tough, but beating him is so, so satisfying, and just that sense of accomplishment is, I think, unmatched within basically the whole game. Even though this isn't number 1, I think the sense of accomplishment I felt from beating this fight was probably the best that I felt in this entire game. It was so good. Unfortunately, that was then, took a downturn by like a worse boss fight right after, but man, if the game just ended like right here and then the rest was just like cutscene, or like the last boss was more fun, like, that would have been so good. But it's alright. Even if they didn't stick the landing, they really stuck this boss fight. This was so, so good, but not quite number 1. And if you've been keeping track, you should know number 1 is the Corrupt Woodsmith. I love this section of the game. All the stuff with Adira is so, so good, and this fight is no different. I love the gimmick of the Woodsmith being immune to like all of your attacks until you blow up the middle thing. It was so satisfying to sort of get into a rhythm of throw a bomb at the middle, kind of jump and just shoot 3 arrows in like slow motion, and then just transition that into a 1v1 fight where the Corrupt Woodsmith just really had a lot of, interesting combos that you had to deal with. There was some smaller enemies that you could build route levels on, and then halfway through the fight, oh my gosh, when she like throws away the middle, becomes more aggressive, the boss arena goes from like this, calmer blue to just this like fiery red, and she gets so much more aggressive. And it's just so satisfying to fight and beat. I loved it so much. The music, oh my gosh, the music. Whenever she goes and approaches the middle and starts spewing like fire rings everywhere, it is top tier. And this is one of my favorite boss fights of all time in video games, hands down. And I would fight this boss 16 times in place of every other boss in this game if I could. It is that good. I love it so much. And it was literally as soon as I beat it, I was like, this is the best one. There's no way anything could top this. And I gotta be honest, nothing really even made me reconsider this as my top option. So that is my ranking for all of the bosses in Kenna Bridge of Spirits. hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about my list, and leave some of your opinions down in the comment sections below. If you want to see more rankings in the future, stay tuned. I like to rank things after I play games. That's sort of what I do around here. If that's something that interests you, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and yeah, you'll get more stuff like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys for whatever next video you guys show up for. Peace.